On Thursday Night Football, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers beat the Philadelphia Eagles 28-22. And look, the outcome of this game was anything but a surprise. Did anybody expect Philadelphia to win this football game? You have one team, a Super Bowl contender, Tampa, and then a Philly, a team that's rebuilding, got a rookie coach, a second-year quarterback. And look, I think the only thing that was surprising about this game was the fact that it was actually relatively close by the end. Now, Tampa had the ball at the very end. They were, on the goal line. They chose not to score. They just kneeled it, walked away, happy to win with a 6-point victory. But I was surprised that Philadelphia hung around as long as they did. And most of my takeaways from this game are about Philadelphia. We'll dive into them a lot. First, I will say, though, Tampa is 5-1. They are absolutely Super Bowl contenders. And I think, near the end of this topic, I want to talk about Bruce Arians, their head coach. I want to talk about Byron Leftwich, their offensive coordinator. But before we get in Philly, the one thing I do want to say is that I think a lot of people somehow still don't appreciate Tom Brady for how great he is. He's 44 years old. And in 6 games this year, has thrown for 2,064 yards, 17 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. It's unbelievable. I get it. I love Tom Brady. I'm a fan, yada, yada. But it's still, it's actually, to me, feels weird that we're not making an even bigger deal about how well he's playing. We're like bored of how good he is. And my fear is that people don't respect him for what he is. Like, he is unbelievable. He's maybe arguably statistically the best quarterback in the NFL. Now, I get it. He's played one more game than everybody else, but it's still just ridiculous what Tom Brady's doing at the age that he is. And I hope that people realize that we're probably never going to see this ever again in any of our lifetimes. And so you better appreciate Tom Brady while he's still here, because it certainly is really, really fun to watch this year. Now, Philadelphia. There's a lot to say. It's ugly. It's complicated. It's messy, especially about the running game. We'll dive into the running game in a moment. But straight up, the number one thing I want to say, and this is not controversial in my opinion, this is something that's very, very clear about Philadelphia, is that in 6 games this year, their head coach, Nick Sirianni, and their quarterback, Jalen Hurts, have not been good enough. Now, I'm not ready to come down with a hammer. A lot of people are, fire the coach. Coach is horrible. Get rid of the quarterback. And I am definitely open to having conversations about, should Gardner Minshew play sooner than later? Definitely. I'll get into that in a moment. But I think the one thing is that I'm not ready to completely give up on Nick Sirianni or Jalen Hurts just yet. But we're getting really, really close. And Nick Sirianni has cost his team a game or two this year with bad play calling. However, it's year 1, so I don't mind. Like, here's the thing. Philadelphia is not going to win a Super Bowl this year, no matter who their head coach was. So I don't mind the coach, Nick Sirianni, kind of learning on the fly, learning some difficult lessons now, because, frankly, every game Philly loses at this point gives them a better draft pick for next year. So I'm like, nothing really that big has been lost by losing the games they've lost because of Nick Sirianni. And I just remind everyone, it's not like Philly has this incredible roster. They maybe could have won 2 more games, but they're 2-4 right now. Okay, they are what they are. And then, despite the mistakes Nick Sirianni has made, some on the goal line, the 49ers game really sits heavily on my mind. The play calling actually hasn't been all that bad. I mean, there's some good ideas in Philadelphia. I see some stuff they know with Jalen Hurts where I'm like, well, that's a good concept. That's a good idea. That's a good play design. And so I think it's early. Philly should be patient. That's a city that really, really struggles to be patient. But I actually look at Philly and think they're really, really close. And what I would hate to do is for somebody to step in and pull the plug early on the coach or the quarterback and make a drastic change. Maybe they change quarterbacks to Gardner Minshew or something. I would hate for that big drastic change to be made right before Philly's about to turn a corner. So I'm like, let's give it 3-4 more games, see if maybe they can get the ball rolling and turn into a well-oiled machine. Because, man, a couple mistakes here and there are really holding back Philadelphia, but if you can clean up those little mistakes, this offense is really, I think, close to having a big game or two. Now, Jalen Hurts, the quarterback, similar to the head coach, Nick Sirianni. Jalen Hurts, I've seen some good stuff. However, he has not been consistent enough. And Jalen has really, really struggled throwing the ball vertical along the sideline. He's either underthrowing receivers or throwing the ball out of bounds or hitting it too far. It clearly isn't very good at that. There was a play against Tampa where, it's clear one-on-one coverage. It's like, get the ball out of your hands. I don't know why he waited and waited and waited, and then finally he got it. It was actually a good ball, vertical down the right sideline. But it's like, why did you wait so long to get that ball out of your hands? And we saw the interception, I think it was last week, where he underthrew a ball on a fade ball, and you're like, how do you do that? Jalen, you got to get the ball out on verticals, and he's clearly struggling with that. And then there's a couple of key throws he clearly missed in this game against Tampa. One I remember the most is 3rd and 5 to Zach Ertz, who's now gone, by the way. We talk about the trade in a moment. Zach Ertz was open on an out-breaking route. Jalen completely missed. That's an inaccurate throw. Can't happen. You can't have your quarterback not getting first downs because he's inaccurate. And I love Jalen Hurts as a human being. He's one of my favorite people in the NFL. But I'm at the point where if 4 games from now nothing's different or he's not getting better, I'm like, let's give Gardner Minshew, the backup quarterback, an opportunity. The reason I don't want to pull the plug on that now is because I think, I would hate to pull the plug early, make a big change right before they're about to kind of turn a corner and have a big, things are going to click for their offense. So I'm like, let's give it a little bit more. And again, every game they lose at this point, they get closer to having a top 10 pick, which is going to help them a lot next year. But if Jalen isn't the guy, then you got to see what Gardner Minshew can do at minimum for the final 7 games of the year. So give it through week 10 and then pull the plug and see what happens next. But I'm at the point where I'm right on the edge of just like, let's see what Gardner Minshew can do. Now, here are some really, really brutal realities from this game. Number one, Tampa is really, really banged up in the secondary. Corner Sean Murphy-Bunting and Carlton Davis are injured. They're out. Safety Antoine Winfield Jr. did not play because he's hurt. During the game, corner Richard Sherman left the game with a hamstring injury. Oh, yeah, by the way, Jamel Dean, their other corner, was playing injured. So this is a depleted Tampa Bay secondary. Here is what Jalen Hurts did against them. He was 12 for 26 passing, only 115 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Now, in fairness, Philly did get 2 really big, long pass interference calls. Maybe those could have been big catches, and with those catches, he probably has even more yards. And it's possible we missed out on a couple yards from Jalen Hurts because of pass interference calls. Still, though, he only completed 46% of his passes. That's, people say you want to get at least above 50%, but even in the NFL, 50% of your completions is really low. Jalen didn't even get to 50% last night. That's awful. And again, I'm a guy who likes Jalen, but I got to call it like I see it. That's not good. And now, to be fair, he ran the ball 10 times for 44 yards and 2 touchdowns. But Philly did not reach 100 yards of total offense until the 4th quarter. That is terrible. It cannot happen. And I love Jalen. I've said be patient, and I've been being patient. And it's not getting better. In fact, it's getting worse. You play a bad Tampa secondary who's depleted with injuries, you got to shred them. And Jalen didn't. That's a really bad stain on his record so far, whatever you call it. But if you're a Philly fan, I totally understand the anger and frustration. Again, I'm one who, I move like a glacier. Let's wait till the last possible moment to make a drastic change. I try to give everybody a fair shot. But Jalen Hurts is, coming to the very end of his rope. Now, a lot of people are upset. They want Philly to run the ball more with their running back, Miles Sanders. And this is a very, very complicated debate. And this is why, I said in the intro, it's messy, it's complicated. This is where things get really, really complicated because it's not like Philly isn't calling running plays. They keep calling RPOs, a run-pass option, where basically, if they have numbers in the box, for example, if there are 6 guys to block 6 defenders, then they run the ball. But if the defense loads the box or the numbers don't work for Philly, let's say they only have 5 guys to block 6 defenders, if you count the numbers and read leverage, and then what ends up happening, if the numbers don't work out for Philly, you end up throwing the ball on what's actually a running play. The offensive line blocks like a running play, receivers run a route, and you got to get the ball out quickly before offensive linemen get too far downfield. Then you have an illegal lineman downfield penalty. But basically every play that Philly's running that they run the ball is an RPO. You watch receivers run routes constantly. It's a run-pass option. And people are upset because Miles Sanders isn't running the ball more, but a lot of that is because Philly doesn't have favorable matchups at the line of scrimmage, and they're throwing a lot on RPOs where they have an option to throw the ball. And Philly could, just start calling straight running plays, but against Tampa especially, that's a bad idea. Tampa's got a really, really good front seven. Try running it Vita Vea. That's not a good idea. And that's why I say it's a very, very complicated problem, because it's not as simple as Philly isn't calling running plays. It's that Philly calls a running play with an option to throw. The defense gives them a look to throw the ball, and they throw the ball, and also that isn't working. So I get it. And in fact, Philly, they're throwing the ball in running plays. It's very weird, and I would argue that they probably should run the ball more on straight running plays, because you look at time of possession last night, it's atrocious. I actually felt really, really bad for the Eagles' defense in this game, because here's Tampa's time of possession: 39 minutes and 56 seconds. Meanwhile, the Eagles had the ball for only 20 minutes and 4 seconds. So it's insane. Tampa's offense had the ball for literally 2/3 of the entire game. I mean, Philly's defense is on the field over and over, and it can't get off the field. Philly got screwed over by their offense. Their defense just, oh, man. And so if nothing else, Philly needs to run the ball more just to eat some more clock. I mean, literally, Philadelphia had a 35-second drive, 3 and out, where your defense barely gets any rest, and immediately they're back on the field, and they're exhausted and have no rest. And I don't know, man. Right now, the main problem in Philadelphia is the play calling with Nick Sirianni. And then Jalen Hurts, I think, is an even bigger problem with inconsistent throws and just, some bad decisions. It's mostly just he's inaccurate or has poor timing. And I love Jalen. He works hard, but he's not improving fast enough to keep his job, I fear. I mean, they traded for Gardner Minshew. That wasn't an accident. And the only good news, really, is that if the year ended today, the Eagles would have 3 top 10 picks. They would have their own top 10 pick, then, a pick from Miami in the first round. And then they might get another first-round pick from the Colts that right now would be a top 10 pick. It's kind of wild. If Carson Wentz plays all year, then Philly gets a first-round pick from Indianapolis. And the Colts are in a position where if their year starts going south, and they're 1-4 right now, the Colts are, if they really have a terrible year going on, they're going to have to probably bench their starting quarterback to avoid losing a first-round pick, which the Colts could use a first-round pick right now. So interesting storylines going on here. What's going to happen with that draft pick that hangs in the balance? If Carson Wentz plays more than 75% of the snaps for Indy this year, that second-round pick they traded Carson Wentz away for becomes the first-round pick for Philly. So, man, it's just really, really bizarre. And how weird is it to bench your starting quarterback, even if he's playing well, simply so that you don't lose a draft pick? It's very interesting and very, very bizarre. We could actually see that down the year from the Colts. Now, I do have 2 more things to say about Tampa. Again, I want to remind you, though, the problem in Philly right now, play calling and Nick Sirianni, and frankly, because, I think they got to get away from RPOs a little bit and just run the ball to eat some clock, if nothing else. And then, hear my voice crack, that's awful. But then also, Jalen Hurts is not consistent enough, and I think might be the problem that ends up, he might lose his job. Now, I have 2 more things I want to say about Tampa. Buccaneers head coach Bruce Arians said earlier this week, quote, "I don't want to be a father figure. I want to be the cool uncle you might want to have a drink with." And I love that. It made me think of Urban Meyer. Urban Meyer in Jacksonville very clearly tries to be that father figure. "I got advice for you, son, and let's talk about the Bible." And NFL players that are adults, that doesn't work for them. And clearly the cool uncle that Bruce Arians is works very, very well. They're winning. They're 5-1. And players, and especially players who are adults, respond way better to someone who talks to them like an adult rather than trying to be a father figure in their life when you haven't really earned the right. Like, the cool uncle is way easier to earn the right to achieve. You just hang out and say cool stuff and be yourself. Whereas the father figure takes a lot of work to earn the right to be that way and speak into someone's life that way. So I love that. And I heard that about Bruce Arians, and I was like, that's really cool. Now, my second thought is Byron Leftwich is the Buccaneers offensive coordinator, former first-round pick for the Jacksonville Jaguars, was a quarterback for them for a while in the NFL. I have heard Byron Leftwich's name mentioned as a possible head coach for other teams next year. And I don't know, man, if I'm him, unless there's a crazy good opportunity, I don't know what that would look like. Maybe that's like Pete Carroll leaves Seattle and you can work with Russell Wilson. Although that's like, do you want to be with, I love Russell Wilson, but what about the rest of the organization? I don't know. And my point is, if I'm Byron Leftwich, I'm in no hurry to leave a really good opportunity. Like, how do you leave Tom Brady and find an upgrade situation where your life is even better and you have a better quarterback and a better situation? And if I'm Byron Leftwich, I'm like, I'm going to stay here. I'm going to keep learning. I'm going to keep gathering stories and gathering info. And he'll be a head coach someday if he wants to be. But I would let things play out with Tom Brady first. And again, the more you work with Tom Brady, the better you're going to be as a head coach later. Because you can say, back when I worked with Tom Brady, that sentence is going to be like something he can use forever. So whenever things fully play out with Brady, that is when I would leave if I'm Byron Leftwich. And I would be in no hurry at all to leave if I was him.